Hey guys, welcome back to the Hall of Style. I'm Jen. I'm so glad you guys could join me today. I have a little bit further information I wanted to share with you guys about My Way Nectar by Giorgio Armani. I did an unboxing video a few weeks ago and you guys can check that up here, up there, wherever they're gonna put it. If you wanna check out a little bit further information on this fragrance and 3 others that I did an unboxing video on, check it out. I'll also link to it at the end of the video for you guys. So My Way by Giorgio Armani is a very popular white floral fragrance line. It tends to focus on jasmine, tuberose, and orange blossom. It's a very good everyday fragrance. A lot of women wear it as their signature scent. It's easy to wear during the daytime. You could wear it out tonight. It's just sort of smells good all the time. It smells good year round. It's easy to wear. You could wear it to work. Like, it's just an easy grab in my opinion. My Way Nectar, which is the fragrance that we're focusing on today, is the latest flanker from this line. It just came out this year in 2024. And I really like this. It's a really fresh, clean take on the original My Way. And I wanted to give you guys a little bit more information on the fragrance. As I said, it was released in this year, 2024. This is an EDP or Eau de Parfum formulation. It comes in, I believe, 3 sizes. There might be a travel spray too, but I know for sure 3 sizes. I have the 30 ml, which looks like this. And that 30 ml retails for $90. The 50 ml bottle retails for $125. The 90 ml bottle retails for $155. The noses for this perfume are Bruno Jovanovic and Carlos Benaïm. The official notes of this fragrance from Armani's website are as follows. The opening is Calabrian bergamot oil, orange blossom in bitter orange oil, pear accord, and rhubarb. The heart features tuberose absolute from India and a jasmine grandiflorum super infusion, along with violet leaf accord. And then the base dry down features Madagascan bourbon vanilla infusion, cedarwood, and white musks accord. So I really liked My Way Nectar from first sniff. It's super good. It's really clean, which I love. I love the pear note in it. It's kind of subtle, but it's there and it smells great. It also has a rhubarb note in the opening, which rhubarb's a little hit or miss for me. It can be a little sour. I think it's meant to be kind of a tart note, but sometimes it's just a little too sour for me. But I didn't even notice it in this perfume at all, so I didn't have a problem with it there. I find the tuberose in this fragrance to be pretty mellow overall. Tuberose can be a really heady note. It can be kind of bubblegummy, which I actually like. Sometimes even I would go so far as to say it smells like a grape bubblegum. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lauder. It is really focused on tuberose. The newer edition is really focused on tuberose, and it almost smells like grape bubblegum to me. It smells really good. But I would say the tuberose here is less bubblegummy. It's just kind of mellow. I think it blends well with the other notes, and it blends really well with those clean, fresh notes to just make this overall a very like fresh and clean and refreshing fragrance. I think overall this is a great easy grab fragrance that can be worn pretty much anytime, anywhere. I think this is the type of fragrance that shines in the spring and the summer. It's great for warm weather. It's daytime appropriate. It's office appropriate. It's not super heavy. You're not gonna like blow your coworkers away or anything like that with your scent. Like, this is just very clean, fresh, non-offensive, very easy to wear. Who's tried this one? Tell me if you guys have tried it. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Drop me a comment if you've tried this or if you want to try it. I'd love to know what your guys' impressions are with this. All right, so time for the comparisons. I love comparing perfumes, you guys. If you've been watching some of my videos, you can see that that's one of my favorite things to do, is to get a perfume, think about what does this remind me of, look at what other people have said that it reminds them of, and just compare and contrast. I just find that endlessly fun. So I'm gonna do a couple of comparisons here for you guys today. So the first fragrance that I compared Nectar with was the original My Way, which I have in a sample and I'm very familiar with. I've tried it a lot over the years, and this is just your very tried and true, easygoing white floral. It smells great. It's an easy grab. A lot of people consider this their signature fragrance, wear it every day. It's a fragrance that is not too strong that you couldn't wear it to work. It also isn't too light and mellow that you couldn't wear it out. It's just kind of like anytime, anywhere, easy grab. This original My Way was released in 2020. It is also an EDP or Eau de Parfum formulation, and it comes in a pink bottle with a blue cap. The notes for this fragrance are: top is Calabrian bergamot, orange blossom from Egypt. The mid is tuberose from India and jasmine from India. And the base is Virginian cedarwood, vanilla from Madagascar, and white musks. So this actually has a lot in common with My Way Nectar in terms of the notes are very, very similar. I think the only differences really is that the nectar has the pear, the rhubarb, and the violet leaf, but they're very, very similar in terms of like they have almost identical notes. The noses for the original My Way are again Bruno Jovanovic and Carlos Benaïm. So my comparison with these two is basically what I've alluded to already, is that My Way Nectar tends to be fresher, brighter, cleaner, and the original My Way is a little bit more heady, a little bit more floral. I think, it's not like a super, super outrageously musky or floral fragrance, but you do get that a little bit more compared to the My Way Nectar, which is just so much more fresh and clean. With the original My Way, I get a lot of jasmine, a lot of tuberose. Those are the ones that stand out for me the most in terms of the notes. And I also get a little bit of that powdered sugar vibe that I talk to you guys about sometimes. I love that impression in a perfume. Certain bourbon vanillas just are so yummy and so sweet, and they give you this like powdered vanilla sugar kind of vibe that I love it. I would definitely say that the original is more powdery in general. I don't really get a lot of powderiness or any powderiness at all with the nectar. It's more fresh. Like I said, it's more blossomy. You do get that sort of like orange blossom feel, and it really does smell like blossom, or like that feeling of like nectar. If you think of like a hummingbird going into a blossom and like getting nectar out of it, it has that sort of a feel to me. I do get a bit of that grape bubblegummy tuberose that I mentioned before with the tuberose in the original My Way, and I love it. I think it's really sweet and it smells good, and I love gourmandy leaning fragrances that smell like candy. Like, that's totally my jam. I think everyone experiences perfumes differently in terms of performance, but I think the performance for both of these are pretty moderate. I would say the original My Way does last longer than Nectar. Nectar is a lighter fragrance. I would say it performs sort of lightly moderate in all ways, shape, and form. Like when you spray it on, you do smell it for a while, but it does turn into a skin scent maybe sooner than the regular My Way or some of the other flankers do. So just kind of have that in mind. You might want to like top it off halfway through the day if you want to keep your scent very strong, but neither of these tend to be like really like what I would call a screamer. They're not going to be like filling the room or as loud as some of the other perfumes out there. So I'll just give you guys a quick brief synopsis on how My Way Nectar compares and contrasts with the other My Ways in the line. I've tried all of them and they're all really good, by the way. I like all of them a lot. So the first one that I tried and compared it with after My Way original was My Way Intense, which I have in a lovely little decant here. And I really like this one as well. This one, the notes that they actually have in common are the orange blossom, the tuberose, and the Madagascar vanilla. And the main difference is that the Intense has only the orange blossom and bitter orange in the opening versus Nectar also having the bergamot, pear, and rhubarb. And then Intense only has tuberose in the heart, and it doesn't have the jasmine or the violet leaf. And then the Intense also has sandalwood instead of cedar and no musk at all listed. Of course, they both have the lovely vanilla. So I would say basically the Intense is a little bit of a departure with only having the tuberose and not having the jasmine, which is pretty key in the other My Way fragrances. The nose listed for this one is Carlos Benaïm, and this one, I would say that Intense is sweeter and more candied in feel to me compared to the very fresh Nectar. Again, I really get those fresh, clean, blossomy vibes from Nectar. And I really notice the amped up tuberose in the intense. I really like it because I'm a fan of tuberose, but if it's a note that's tricky for you, this might not be your favorite of the bunch. On the other hand, if like me, you do like tuberose, this might really be your favorite of the bunch. If you smelled My Way and thought, oh, I love the tuberose, I wish the jasmine was a little bit amped down, then this is probably the one that you'll like the best. I would also say that the Intense is a bit deeper and a bit more musky. No surprise with a name like Intense. It does perform like a more intense fragrance, and especially compared to the light My Way Nectar. Despite the fact that I say that Intense is sweet and deep and musky, it is still very clean. I think all of the fragrances in this line are very clean. I don't find them very indolic or musky in a sweaty way or anything like that. They're very clean and feminine and pretty. Intense does perform more like an intense formulation. I think it is much more noticeable when you spray them on, has a, larger projection, it lasts longer. It just performs, like an intense fragrance. So I think it does accomplish what they're trying to do here. I think Intense makes a great date night scent. It does have that sweetness, that muskiness, that, deeper feel all around, and I think that it's a great fragrance for wearing out. If you want to smell, like a little bit more nighttime and sexy or whatever. I do think it's the type of fragrance that could tend to be a little sickly for some. If you find tuberose too heady or like a sweet tuberose is too much for you, maybe in the summertime, it might just be a little too sweet, a little too sickly for some. So just kind of gauge that. Know that about yourself, that if you're like, oh, I don't really like sweet fragrances, or, oh, tuberose is kind of too much for me, then I would say probably stay away from this one. It's not going to be your most favorite in the line. I really like tuberose, so I love it. I think it smells great. Like I said, you kind of get a little bit of that bubblegum kind of grapey vibe. So for me, it totally works. I love it. Okay, so next up is My Way Floral, which I also have in a decant, and I also really like a lot. It was released in 2022. It is an EDP or Eau de Parfum formulation, and the bottle for this one has sort of a frosted look to it. It has that pink look with the blue bottle as usual, but a little bit of a frosted look. And this one has notes in common of orange blossom, tuberose, Madagascan vanilla, and white musk. So quite a few similar notes. The noses for this one are Carlos Benaïm again and Pascal Gaurin. So you do get some similar vibes with these two, but I would say Floral is sweeter. And of course, Nectar, again, is sticking with its fresh, clean vibes. I really get the citrus in the opening with both. I get a touch of my powdered vanilla sugar with the Floral. And I would say, although they're a bit similar in the opening, as they dry down, they kind of both go their own separate ways. With the Floral, it really goes into that more sweeter vibe. It has a really lovely combo of citrus, white floral, and that vanilla sugar powder vibe that kind of reminds me a little bit of Miss Dior, like the original Miss Dior, that has that sort of powdery sugar with the citrus feel. The thing is with this one though, is the My Way Floral, it doesn't have any patchouli. So if that's something that kind of bothered you about the Miss Dior line, or I would even compare it maybe with La Vie Belle. La Vie Belle also has those sort of, orangey blossom with the vanilla powdered sugar, but it has that really heavy patchouli in the base. So if you don't care for patchouli, you might really like My Way Floral if you've been kind of searching for that kind of vibe minus the patchouli. There's an addition of a neroli note in the Floral, which I love. I really love that note. It's similar to orange blossom. It's also taken from the orange tree, but it does have a little bit of a different process in which they formulate it. So it, to me, tends to be a little bit sweeter, and I just really love it, especially combined with vanilla. That's a favorite combination of mine. It's really sweet and yummy. I do find that the vanilla is also really ramped up with the Floral, and I think just that combination again is so good. I think the performance is pretty equal with both of these. Neither of these are screamers. They're not super loud. They're going to be kind of mellow, kind of like closer to the skin, and you may want to reapply like halfway through the day. It's not going to be some super loud, fragrance that's going to fill a room. So that's, for better or worse, depending on what your preferences are. I think they're both great, and I think they're different enough that you could own and enjoy both. I do think that, again, if you like those kind of fragrances that have the sweet vanilla mixed with the orange blossom or neroli or just an orange note in general, but minus the patchouli, I think you're really going to like My Way Floral. So the last perfume in the My Way line is My Way Parfum, which I also have in a sample. And I think this might be my favorite of the bunch, although I really like Nectar too. Again, I like all of them, but this has a very prominent iris note, and I'm a big fan of iris, especially when it's mixed with vanilla and white florals. I just love that combination. So this one's really a winner for me. This was released last year in 2023. It is a parfum concentration, so a little bit heavier duty than the other ones we've talked about. The bottle is sort of an ombre bluish into a pink bottle with a blue cap. It's very beautiful. The notes in common that this has with My Way Nectar are bergamot, orange blossom, tuberose, cedarwood, the Madagascar vanilla, and the white musk. So these actually have quite a few notes in common, but I will say that they end up being pretty different because of that prominent iris note that is in the parfum. It really stands out. You really notice it. It does this sort of thing where it smells a little bit lipsticky, like powdered makeup or powdered lipstick vibes. And you really get that with iris, especially when it's combined with these kind of sweet vanillas and with berries. This actually has a berried feel to me. It almost feels like there's some strawberry in it. It has this sort of like strawberry chapstick, strawberry lip gloss vibe. If you guys are familiar with Burberry Her, which here's my cute mini of Burberry Her, it has that vibe too. So if you know what I'm talking about with that vibe that you get with that like strawberry or cherry chapstick kind of a feel that you get with Burberry Her, I also really get that with My Way Parfum. It also reminds me a little bit of La Vie Belle Iris Absolue, which came out recently. It has a similar feel to that. Again, if the Iris Absolue, if you liked that one, but you didn't care for the patchouli, this is a great one to try because it has really similar vibes to that, but minus the patchouli. I also get a bit of those sweet bubblegummy vibes with the parfum that I was mentioning before. The tuberose in it is super yummy, and that combination of that sweet bubblegummy tuberose with the vanilla, with the really yummy iris. I love that whole vibe. It smells super, super good to me. Nectar, again, compared with it, it keeps with those fresh vibes, those fresh, clean vibes. I think they're pretty different from one another. You could definitely have both of these and be happy if you like both of these kind of fragrances. They're definitely not going to be too much overlap in your perfume collection. They're pretty different from one another, in my opinion. There is a cleanness with the parfum. It's clean in a different way than the like super fresh vibes of the Nectar, but it almost has a little bit of a shampoo-y vibe. I think that kind of goes in line with that iris mixed with the vanilla, mixed with the white floral. Like it has that sort of a vibe to me. Parfum has a stronger projection and it lasts longer, as you would expect with it being a parfum concentration. It's not the loudest perfume in the world, but it does perform, more than the Nectar. It lasts longer and it is stronger than the Nectar. So guys, it just wouldn't be a video of mine if something didn't go wrong. If my voice sounds different, it's because I'm recording this really quick without my microphone. I'm missing a chunk of my video. I don't know what happened. It must have got deleted somehow in the mix. Anyways, I just wanted to introduce the next section of my video where I'm talking about a couple of comparisons for a couple of other perfumes that are not in the My Way line, but that are just some that I thought or other people have thought smells similar to Nectar. So this is just like a quick rundown of those fragrances. So the first one we're talking about is Daisy Eau So Fresh. And this is the original version of Daisy Eau So Fresh. So the notes that they have in common are pear, musk, and cedarwood. And then the Eau So Fresh has violet, which I guess you could say is sort of in the same family with the violet leaf that Nectar has, but violet leaf and violet are two different things. So I wouldn't say they're super, super similar in feel. Once I had them together on my skin, I felt that Daisy Eau So Fresh was decidedly a little bit more old school in feel. It actually smelled a little bit like powdered blue raspberry Kool-Aid, like how it smells in the packet. If you know what I'm talking about, if you made that for yourself as a kid, or maybe you have your own children and you kind of get that whiff of that like powdery blue raspberry, that's what I get with Oh So Fresh. I also find there's a touch of warmth with Oh So Fresh. I don't know. I didn't notice if there was an amber in the base, but I'm wondering if there is some kind of like amber or resin or something that gives it that sort of ambery, sparkly, like kind of deeper, cozier vibe. I really do get that with the Oh So Fresh, especially compared to the Nectar. Overall, I don't think these two are identical twins or anything, but I do think if you liked one, you could like the other. I certainly like both of them, and I think they're both fresh and clean and great fragrances for spring and summer daytime wear. I also compared it with the original Daisy, which I also have in a fun little perfume spray here, travel spray. And again, kind of the same with the other one. It's like they're both fresh, they're both clean. I don't find them to be super identical twins or anything. They do have a couple of notes in common. They have the jasmine and the cedarwood. And then Daisy Original has white violet petals. Again, though, you're getting the violet leaf with the nectar, so not really the same thing. I did find the original Daisy to be closer to Nectar than I thought Oh So Fresh was. I still don't think they're identical twins, but it's not quite as sweet, and doesn't really have that like berry, that like powdered berry vibe that I get with Oh So Fresh. So it's a little bit more just kind of like straight, like clean, easy floral, and just very like refreshing and like fresh out of the shower vibes. This time I did find that Nectar was the one that was the sweeter of the two. I think if you like these lighter, fresher, clean scents, again, I think it's an easy grab. You know, they're not going to be identical twins, so you could own both of them and be happy, as I am. But I wouldn't smell one expecting it to be like an identical twin with the other or anything like that. The last Daisy perfume that I compared Nectar to was Daisy Wild, which I also have in a fun travel spray. And again, not really finding it super similar. And I think, again, fresh, clean, fruity, easy to wear. You know, if you like that genre, you like that vibe, you know, check both of them out for sure. But I'm not going to say that they're like super identical twins or even really in that much of a similar ballpark. The only note they have in common is jasmine. You know, jasmine is in a million fragrances, so I didn't find them super, super similar. I would say that once they were next to each other, Wild was much more citrusy. I actually got like mega overdose of orange once I was comparing Wild with Nectar. And it's funny because I don't even think orange is listed as a note for Wild, but for some reason it was like full on like sweet orange juice. Like, have you guys ever like tasted Pog? Do you remember Pog with like the orange juice and the passion fruit and guava, I think? Anyways, it reminded me of that. It has that really tropical vibe. I think it has like a macadamia nut note or something. It's really interesting. So it's got this like tropical, fruity, like really fun, like it's a great summertime fragrance too. Like I definitely love Wild, but I really don't think it's that similar to Nectar. Again, with Nectar, it's just cleaner, it's just fresher. I get that blossomy, that soft, you know, feminine blossomy vibe. I just didn't really think they were that close. But again, if you like one, you could easily like the other. They're both really good. The last little comparison I'm going to talk about is I thought when I first sprayed My Way Nectar on, the first thing I thought of was Modern Muse by Estée Lauder. Just the combination of that tuberose with that musk instantly made me think of Modern Muse, which I think is, again, a really easy grab. It's a nice daytime, easy to wear, smells good on a lot of people, you know, just really easygoing kind of a perfume to wear. They do have a couple of notes in common. In addition to the tuberose and the musk, they also have the jasmine and the vanilla from Madagascar. So it's interesting, when I did finally compare these two together, they felt really, really different. It was kind of like with the Daisy, where it was like, you kind of have this idea in your mind that maybe they're going to be alike, but then once you get them next to each other, it was like, maybe not so much. The Modern Muse felt really old school to me compared to My Way Nectar, which is funny because I don't really think of Modern Muse as super old school, even though it has been out for a while. But for whatever reason, it just had a more, I don't know if I want to say like old fashioned, not really. I mean, it's still easy to wear and feels like up to date, but compared to My Way Nectar, it felt like more classic to me. Nectar like straight up smelled like candy next to Modern Muse. It smelled so much sweeter, so much younger. It was really interesting. I wasn't really expecting that. With Modern Muse, I really was getting the musk. It almost had kind of a metallic vibe to me. It actually made me think a little bit of a chlorinated swimming pool. I don't know if you guys have ever gotten that kind of a vibe with perfume before. I've smelled it a few other times with other perfumes. And even though it sounds super weird, it's not necessarily like awful, but I think it's just one of those things I noticed with it next to Nectar. You know, it's not something I think of when I wear Modern Muse on its own, but when I have the two of them next to each other, it was like, oh, this has that sort of a vibe. Like it's a little bit more metallic to me. Whereas this one was just like so sweet. It was really interesting. I will say that Modern Muse did last longer. It projected longer and it lasted on my skin the longest out of all the perfumes that I've talked about today. It was one of those perfumes that I sprayed it on one day and, you know, wore it the whole day, could smell it the whole night, woke up the next morning, I could still smell it on my skin. You know, it was definitely faded by that point, but it had the best lasting power out of everything I've talked about today. There are some other products available in the My Way line. I talked about all of the main fragrances from the line today, but there are a few other items. There was a My Way Nacre version that was a flanker that had a pretty shimmer to it. It had the exact same notes as the original My Way, but just had this sort of like pearlescent shimmer to it. So that was kind of fun. It was actually released in 2022, but I can't find it anywhere anymore other than like third-party discounter sites. So I guess that was kind of a short-lived limited edition thing, but it was really cool looking. I think you might still be able to find it on one of the discounters websites. So I'll link to that for you guys in the info box in case you're interested in checking it out. It looked like a fun thing to wear in the summer with that sort of like shimmery vibe. There was also a hair and body mist that was, again, really short-lived. I believe it was released in 2023. But I haven't been able to find that one anywhere. I don't even think I saw that on a discounter. So I'm not sure what happened to that. It must have been another limited edition that just came and went. It was like out of here. There are a couple of great gift sets online, especially at Macy's. They have some really good ones. They have one that's got like a body lotion. And then they have another one that I think is a great deal that has the original My Way and My Way Nectar as little travel sprays. So I think that's a really good one to check out if you want to try both My Way and the Nectar. The My Way bottles are designed to be refillable, and you can purchase refill bottles when your juice runs out. And those are also available at Macy's. Well, that's about it for me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed my review and my comparisons for Armani My Way Nectar. So it was really fun to put all this together for you guys. And don't forget to head over to my website, thehallofstyle.com. I have a whole bunch of perfume reviews about shower gels, hand soaps, candles, all sorts of scented items. I just recently finished a post on Bath & Body Works hand soaps for summer, and I'm currently working on a shower gel Bath & Body Works for summer fragrance list as well. So you guys want to go ahead and check that out at thehallofstyle.com. Please don't forget to like this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in the next video about fun scented things. Take care.